Today on the Retro Zoo Super Show, it's time to relax.
Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Greetings, everybody. It is the Retro Zoo Super Show, and I am your host, Kai. Okay, so it's been actually a little while since I got on the air, and by a little while, I mean we took last week off. That was the beginning of well, here in America, the Memorial Day weekend. And so I actually had a little time off, and it was really good that I did. It was one of those weeks that and I say this, I was like, I've been kind of getting fried for a little bit, and if you did tune into the last episode, you heard me mention that I was actually planning to take that week off instead of the following week, which was last week. Not to confuse people with all the weeks, but I was actually planning to take that week off. But I got to see Detective Pikachu and really enjoyed it, and so did want to just chat about that movie for a little bit. But I knew it was about time that I needed to take a week off, and so that next week, which weekend was last week, turned out to be like really great timing. And I just like, it was actually one of those times when there's like just a lot of stuff popped up at home. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like just really horrible, terrible stuff. It was well, okay. So it was like projects that I had been needing to do for a while. And it turned out that the optimal time to do so was going to be last weekend. And not even intentionally so. I ended up having to go to Home Depot to get a clamp for some drainage pipes that I needed, and I happened to see like the mulch was on sale, and like that was actually going to be my project for this next weekend, but it was like, it was too good of a sale to not go ahead and just grab it. And so, well, it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing this today. And it turned out like that for actually a couple different things. And that was really, really good for me. But it's like, I mean, I'm coming into this week and I'm honestly just tired. And so I in all seriousness, like was really considering, passing up this episode today. But, I was like, well, actually this might be a good time to talk about just playing video games as a way to relax. And I'm in the best state of mind ever to do that, because that's kind of what, I mean, that kind of mindset that I'm like, I just don't feel like I'm on the top of my game. And I haven't been for a little bit. And those of you who follow me on Twitch, and I'm trying so hard to get back there, but it's one of the reasons I just haven't been streaming. It's not that I haven't been playing video games. I have been. Not a lot. I mean, I've, those of you who know me, or have been listening for a while know I don't actually play a lot of video games. I've been playing video games for the vast majority of my life, and I remember a lot of games because I've played a lot of games, and I'll replay parts for research in the show, but it's not even a daily thing for me. It's certainly not. It's like only a weekly thing. It's a few days a week. But I have been playing video games, and I just haven't been playing them online because my main purpose there was not to entertain someone else, but to try to relax myself. And I didn't want the pressure of having to like talk about it's not, narrating is not the game, but narrating is not the term that I'm looking for. But it's that kind of narration that you do when you're streaming on Twitch. It's just, I mean, if nothing else, it's just the acknowledgement that you are playing for an audience, and so you will. Sometimes actually narrate the game, sometimes explain what you're doing, sometimes just, talk about whatever the day's events are. And I just really haven't felt up to it. And it's like, and I talked to enough content creators out there, and again, like every time I use that term, I cringe, because I really just don't like it. But there isn't a better term. There's not. It's like it's like in our line of work, it feels like our terms aren't the best. Like novelist has some kind of prestige to it. Poet, has a nice ring, orator is, that sounds very, very learned and prestigious. Gamer, streamer, podcaster, we don't have the best terms for what we do, but I've talked to enough like content creators to know that it's like, there's times like these, especially when like so much stuff is going on in real life that is just kind of crowding in on everything else, or it's just that you're emotionally kind of drained. And so, that's kind of where I am. I have, like I said, I haven't been just like, vegging completely. I have been pressing buttons as I'm vegging. But I've actually been playing a lot of Earthbound. That's been the challenge over in the Backlog Book Club. This is a Facebook group I'm part of that we've talked about in past episodes. Is for these couple of months to play the Mother trilogy, and we're actually planning on an Earthbound episode dealing with the plot and not really the music anymore. But and so I wanted to replay it just to refamiliarize myself with the game, and so I've been playing that a lot, and that's what we're going to get into. What level grinding does for me in a little bit, but been playing a lot of that, and honestly, it's just like in my memory, this game, even when I played it, was just one of the greatest games of all time, and playing it again has really only amplified that. It's like I'd forgotten just how good it is. Like there's so much about it that I remembered and I just absolutely loved, but the way it handles so many topics, the way it approaches the characters, the just constant tugging at nostalgia heartstrings, and this, this approach to just an extremely sentimental style, but that's so kind of off kilter in its own humor and its own approach that, like, even the most cliche of JRPG tropes just kind of become new in it. And it's like the one thing that I'd forgotten was so touching was like the My Sanctuary stuff. This is just classic bogus JRPG stupid fetch quest that every single stupid JRPG makes you do. That go get the 12 of this, go get the 6 of this, and it, it's just like, just like pure MacGuffin items that it's just like, oh yeah, wait, let's get the crystals. That's going to be a plot. Said Final Fantasy every single time, and it's stuff like that. It's just like, that we see over and over and over again. Going back to Legend of Zelda, it's just find the pieces of the Triforce. That way we don't actually have to write a plot for this game. Link to the Past just changes it to the crystals. And that's what this game does. It's just like, oh, go find these 8 places and recorded their music on this stone, which actually makes more sense than most of the game legitimately does. But it's just approached with so much warmth, and they're in environments where, like, everything is so twisted. We've talked about this before. It's like the enemy in Earthbound is just how bent people become. They're not like, they're not like evil, imps and trolls. A lot of them are animals that you find outside, but they've just suddenly gotten aggressive, or people who just, I kind of get the same way. And in so many cases, when you hit them with your bat, they become normal, or they become tame in the cases of animals. And this is what happens in real life when you hit somebody with a bat. Please don't try that. And so you know, you're just getting this constant barrage of how normal everyday life just kind of becomes distorted and warped beyond recognition and really corrupted down to its core, and so that it turns on you and seeks to destroy you, and you take your bat and try to make everything better. But like these moments at the My Sanctuary, it's when everything kind of gets, like visually gets lighter, and the music plays, and it's this clip from this song, and it's very innocent and it's very straightforward. And we've talked about the My Sanctuary song before, and it's, you know, it's kind of done in a lullaby style, and then Ness gets this glimpse of something innocent and something good, and it's about puppies and babies and well, in my case, pizza. I always put pizza as my favorite food, but you know, of your favorite food, of the simple joy, and it's just like this moment of just sentimentality, of nostalgia, of just thinking back to not a time when everything was good and right, but to a moment. And that's an important distinction, because it's like, you know, a lot of times, we might look back to the 50s as this great and innocent time, and it's really interesting that there's so much about Earthbound that feels like a 50s science fiction show, and that a lot of that is just looking at the past through rose-colored glasses, because it wasn't all good and innocent. But there are moments like that. And that's what Ness experiences, and that's what you experience through Ness. And that's those moments that he holds on to. So, the game is, specifically, encouraging, looking back at these moments in nostalgia and sentimentality, and using that to propel you. I'd forgotten how touching it is when you call your mother when you're homesick. I mean, it's such an interesting status. The status ailments in the game are just also interesting. But when you haven't talked to your mom for a while, you get homesick, and you start just missing turns, because you're feeling sad. And when you call your mom, it's like you don't actually say anything, because you're the silent protagonist, of course, but she can hear that through the phone, that you're feeling down because of that. And just how touching those calls are. It's like I'd forgotten that, and it's really, really nice. As wacky as this game is, just the pure humanity of it is really touching. Itoy makes this massive plot dealing with time travel and dimensions and outer space and aliens, but he also is able to bring it home to a boy who's out on his own for the first time and experiencing things and being taken advantage of and getting into difficult situations, and all the while being brave, but really just kind of wanting to finish and go home. It's really cool. I've just really enjoyed going back through it, and so I've been doing that. Been still hitting kind of the tabletop role-playing game stuff pretty hard lately. I'm working on a stream game that I'm hoping to get rolling in the near future. I still have a lot of kinks to work out, and a lot of graphics to make for it, but I have been doing that, and so been kind of enjoying working on that, and so more details on that as we go. But I kind of want to give you a heads up that the Dyson Dreary episode for next week is actually one of my favorites, and I think it's a really good one, and been working on the music for that as we go. And so if you do like Dungeons & Dragons stuff, please do check that out. So the topic today is just going to be what kind of games do you get into to help you relax? And this has always been this has always been kind of one of the weird quirks in my personality, I think, is that forever, and I mean from Dragon Warrior 1 onward, one of my favorite things to do to just kind of calm down and relax is level grind. And that's something that a lot of people are going to find very, very weird. Because level grinding is never on the top of people's list of things to just really get into. But it has been for me. And there's a certain amount of patience and willingness to do something very repetitive that it takes to be like an old school level grinder. I mean, like Dragon Warrior 1, Final Fantasy era of level grinder. That process has been steadily sped up through the years, which I think is good. I don't actually advocate going back to Dragon Warrior style level grinding. And I kind of noticed that in tabletop games, or at least Dungeons and Dragons, and like, I mean, this will probably open up an argument, but it's like the difference between like doing advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like I'm doing, Pool of Radiance on the computer right now, which is using AD&D rules, is you could go just forever before you leveled up. Especially like if you weren't finding a lot of treasure and just getting into just kind of sometimes very long battles that didn't generate a lot of XP. And like, especially if you like you're playing a wizard, because if y'all remember the old AD&D rules, is that different classes leveled up at different times, and so wizards took forever to level up, and it just took a very, very exceedingly long time, and so far, like what I've experienced in 5th edition is it's a bit it's a bit easier to level up, and I think that was intentional. I think there's something so satisfying when you're able to level up finally, and the sense of this great sense of accomplishment. That was especially true back in AD&D, because like level 1 in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is so squishy. It's you are on the verge of death pretty much all of the time. And that first level up from level 1 to 2 is just the perhaps the most important of the game, because that's when, your hit points very often would more than double, because like there was no base in AD&D. There was no minimum to the amount of hit points you could get, and so like it's very common, especially for like the wizard, to be sitting there with 1 hit point, maybe 2, and just just the slightest things happen to you and you are out. And you can't really even do that much, especially like as a wizard. You're like, you shoot off your one spell for the day, and you're like, all right, well, I'm done. I guess I could try to throw a dart and miss by a mile because I suck at these things. Your AC is terrible because wizards couldn't wear anything. And so they were always on the verge of death. And so when that second level hit, it was just so sweet. It was so sweet. That seems to be that seems to be the way of things when you have like a range of hit points that you could get at any given level. It's going to mean more at the beginning than it does at the end. Like if you're getting 5 hit points per level, and so like, going to level 2 doubles your hit points from 5 to 10. That's a much bigger gain than like if you're at level 10 going to level 11 when you go from 50 to 55, which is a 10% increase. That has much more of an impact on you. And so those early levels are just so great. And I mean this from all of, any like the JRPGs to Dungeons and Dragons to almost anything. Just going through Earthbound, it's like when you gained a level in Earthbound at the very beginning, when you were gaining like your first level, your first few levels, all of a sudden battles were significantly easier. Now where I am now at the game, and I'm in the 50s of levels, then each level doesn't mean nearly as much anymore. Those first levels are so amazing and so satisfying. And that's one of the things that I just really liked about it, is that satisfaction of working toward that level and accomplishing it, and hearing that little jingle ring, whatever the jingle is in the particular game, that you've reached it, and you are now a better warrior because of all your hard work. And so it's like, back in the Dragon Warrior days, I would very happily just go from battle to battle to battle, and I'll get to the point where I was like, I knew all of the enemy stats by heart, and how each turn was going to play out, and what was the best way to do it. I remember when I was playing it wasn't the first time I played through Final Fantasy 2 on SNES, or Final Fantasy 4, but maybe the third time I realized that Rydia got Medio at level 60. Now, if you remember the game, and this does have minor spoilers, not to the end of the game, but Tella blames Golbez for the death of his daughter, and so there's a point where Tella you reach Golbez, and Tella just kind of loses his mind for a little bit and attacks, and and Golbez is just brushing off his spells, and then he decides that he's going to cast Medio, and it pushes, it kind of weakens Golbez quite a bit, and it also kills Tella, because one of the gags of the game is that Tella always has I think 90 magic points, and Tella's level up is really interesting, and I find it absolutely fascinating because he's very old, and he's the sage character, and so he's like knows a lot, and he's kind of the guy who gets you going at the beginning when all of your characters are so squishy, that he's going to be there to like actually deal some real damage and carry you through. But as he levels up, his stats will start actually going down because of his age and condition, and so like his magic points are stuck at 90, and that's so because when he remembers to spell Meteo, it costs 99 to cast, and so you can't actually cast it unless you underflow your magic. We've talked about that before. We'll talk about that another time because you're not supposed to do that. That's outside the rules. And so it's like this. It's one of the truly great moments of the game is when it happens. And it's not long until Rydia returns to your party. And when she returns, it's actually in the middle of a battle against Golbez again. And so I figured out that, okay, she gets Meteo at level 60. And the way experience works in Final Fantasy IV, when a character leaves your party, that character, if that character is going to come back to your party, that character gains experience along with Cecil. And so if so like Rydia does not return at a specific level. She levels up appropriately along with Cecil so that she kind of keeps pace with the party. And this happens with everybody who leaves and then returns. And so you can kind of manipulate this, where there's a couple places where you can just, have everybody in the party die and just level up Cecil, because if he's the only one gaining experience, he gains a lot more experience. And then the returning party members will be super high in level. Unfortunately, this is also one of the reasons that Edge as a character is not really all that great. And it's really sad because I think there's potential in Edge. Edge is okay. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. For the Deep Space Nine fans out there, Edge is Ezri Dax, okay? Because you had Jadzia Dax for most of the series, and Jadzia in my book is the best female character in Star Wars, in Star Trek. I absolutely adore her as a character. She was amazing. And in the final season of Deep Space Nine, they make an effort to replace her with Ezri Dax, who is a very, very different character. And I love Ezri Dax. I love Ezri Dax. But it's like they brought this character in for a single season in the middle of the Dominion War. If you haven't seen the last several seasons of Deep Space Nine, there's like all one plot, this Dominion War. It's amazing. And so they're trying their best to develop her, but it just doesn't work. There's more important things going on already. And as much as I loved Ezri, it's just like, we don't really have time for this. We need to move on. We have a battle to win. And so she kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And it's the same way with Edge. He's introduced so late, and they do their best to really give him kind of this heart-wrenching backstory, and it does have heartbreaking moments, but it's really at the end of the game, and you're like, I'm really trying to defeat the bad guy at this point, not deal with Edge's personal demons. But Edge had not been in the party beforehand. And so the first time any party member joins, that party member has a starting level. It's only when they return, when they leave and return, that they gain experience along with Cecil. And so Edge, no matter, I mean, in pretty much every case, I am so far outpacing Edge in levels by the time I get him. And I do not want to stop and level grind him. I do have a save file where all my characters are level 99 because, well, I'm a freak at level grinding. Wow, we went on some tangents there. The point was that I realized that that I could get Rydia up to level 60 before that battle with Golbez, and just for my own satisfaction, as poetic justice, I'd have her come in and start blazing Medio at him. And I think I was hoping maybe there'd be like some special dialogue. There's not, but it was still monumentally satisfying. And that meant a lot of level grinding, a lot. But it also meant I didn't have to level grind much for the rest of the game because, you should be able to beat the game around level 60 fairly easily. And so yeah, we just kept going from that point. But, yeah, kind of, this is a thing. This goes back, like I said, to school years. It's like when I was in high school and I'd come home late. I delivered pizzas in high school. It was for a mom and pop place. And I think technically they weren't allowed to have me drive deliveries until I was 18, but I don't think they actually knew that. And so I did. But I would come home and I'd just kind of be just exhausted, especially like on Friday night, be like school and then driving. And then I'd come home and I'd have taped the X-Files and Sliders. And I would perhaps watch those or perhaps just level grind. And I didn't do a lot of the story elements to those games. At that point, I would really level up and wait till I was more awake to engage in like the next cutscene or the next big event. And so that's a lot of what I've been doing lately. And that's one of the things I've been doing with Earthbound. And one thing I really like about Earthbound is that you level up a lot in Earthbound. I mean, it's not a very long game. It's shorter than like the Final Fantasy games, but you gain as many or if not more levels during it. Like, you're ending the game well into the 60s usually. Or even higher. And not all of those levels mean anything. It's kind of weird. There'd be times where you'll level up and you'll only gain like 1 point on one stat and 1 point on hit points. And then the next level you'll gain like something on all the stats and there'll be several numbers and you'll gain 27 hit points. It seems, I don't know if it's actually random or not, or if it's set or, there's not actually anything random. It's just, what it's based on. Some formula spitting those numbers out, or if they're set, but having those kind of worthless levels in between, where you're gaining so little that it's just negligible. Even then, it's like that ding of the level up is very satisfying. And between 4 characters and you're leveling up very, very quickly, you're hearing that ding very, very often. And I really like that. And so I've talked to enough people to know that's, I'm probably weird on that point. But I think it's just one of those things. It's like speaking of X-Files, it's, there's one episode where Mulder is watching Plan 9 from Outer Space, which, by the way, I also like really bad movies. He's watching Plan 9 from Outer Space, and he's explaining to Scully that, like watching Plan 9, occupies just the very surface level of his brain and lets him think more deeply about other stuff. And I think there's actually something to that. Cause it feels like that. It's like, I can think about things. I can, I listen to a lot of podcasts and actually really get into what they're talking about, because, it's like that surface level is just like occupied by something that I don't have to think a lot about. It's just, okay, walk in a circle, battle, XXX, Y, AB, whatever the case may be. I know I know these enemies. I know what I'm going to do in each and every battle. I know when I need to heal. I know when I can just go all out. And it lets me kind of occupy my brain with other things. And I think that's what I like about it. There's one particular game that I really like, that is a really good stress reliever for me. And this one's really weird because I don't like first person shooters. And it's not that I'm just necessarily opposed to them as a genre, but most first person games gives me motion sickness. And so I struggle to play them. But, shooters in particular, y'all know me well enough. I like role playing games. I like games with plot. I like games with character. And when you don't have that, I get bored with that fairly easily. But that being said, Battlefront 2, and I'm talking about the old LucasArts Battlefront 2, not the EA more recent game. But what a spectacular game that is. It's just amazing. And I got to be pretty good at it, like on the normal setting, I got to be good enough that I could just jump into a circle of stormtroopers and have them all shoot at me and I'd still win type stuff. And it was just all so very satisfying. I love being a sniper in that game. And it's very, very, very relaxing to me. The other game, which I thought was kind of weird that it turned out like this, because by all rights, it should be a really stressful game, is, Super Mario, Brothers Lost Levels. This was, you'll probably know the story about this, but this was the true sequel to Super Mario Brothers, but, Japan gave us a different version, which they just reskinned off of another game they made called Doki Doki Panic. But the Super Mario Brothers 2, the Lost Levels version, the Japanese version, is a ridiculously difficult platformer. And I would, thankfully I had the version on the Super Nintendo in the Mario All-Stars game, which is a great game, collection of games. And it lets you save at every level. And which was great because I game overed at pretty much every single level beyond the first few worlds. But it's one of those games where you really need to, you've got to learn what's ahead of you, because the game like rewards you for moving quickly. And if you slow down, you probably have lost the speed you need to make the jump. And so the game is just designed to be like just a speedrun game that you have to be pretty much running the entire time. And so to do that well, you really need to know what's ahead of you. And so when I was playing through this game, it's like, I really just wanted to give it a try, but playing the same level over and over again and just getting a little bit better every time really actually turned out to be really therapeutic for me, which is not what I expected. I expected this game to be very highly stressful. I'm not one who normally likes really, really difficult games. I've not played the Dark Souls games. I'm interested in them, but I also know that I'm that's probably not the right game for me. First of all, because it's first person, but secondly, because it's just the difficulty level is I fear would just really stress me out, and so I found that particular game was very was very good for me when I was playing through it. So yeah, I'm you know it feels kind of weird because I don't think that the games that turn out to be really good stress relievers for me are the games that I would have thought beforehand would do so for me. And so like I'm actually really curious as to what games y'all turn to for the same reason, the kind of the games that help you relax. I'm interested to hear that what y'all get into for that. So hit me up on Facebook as TechnoFunkBoy. Hit me up on Twitter at TechnoFunkBoy. Or best yet, do jump over to our Discord. I have the link in the show notes, and we're doing we've got a number of different things going on there at any given time. Just either talking about our Star Wars RPG, or putting up some gaming memes, or even tabletop role playing game memes, and just chatting about whatever comes up. And so it's good to be a pretty good group in there. And so I hope you join us there and check that out. In the meantime, do check out Dice and Dreary this week. If you are catching this on Friday, check out my Dice and Dreary character on Twitter at CrethenD. But you should do that anyways, but we are giving away right now, and this is for today. Okay. So the contest is today. So if you did not, download this podcast day one, that's fine. Please do go to at CrethenD on Twitter and follow me there anyways. But we are having a giveaway right now for a Strahd Perler that I designed and I made, and it's actually based on the Final Fantasy IV sprites, and I think it's adorable and cute, and I mean scary and daunting. But we are having that giveaway, and so please do look for that post, or just follow me there. I really do appreciate you listening. I kind of hope to be at full strength again next week, but thanks for hanging with me this week, and we will catch you another time.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the TechnoFunkBoy. Follow us on Twitter at TechnoFunkBoy, on Facebook at the TechnoFunkBoy, and sign up for our email list at TechnoFunkBoy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and once you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you can game later.